What is up, fellas, and welcome back to me yapping. I was going to have some locals gameplay from One Piece tonight to put up on the channel. However, what happened at locals changed that plan entirely. We were recording table 1, and we are just going to commentary over table 1, and it ended up just being emu mirrors all night. And that got me into thinking, I just ranted about the Fusion World meta, so why not take the opportunity to rant about the One Piece meta as well. And we don't have a ban list announcement coming up for One Piece, which is unfortunate. I do think some stuff needs to be handled, but I'm going to take this time to voice my complaints and my opinions about the meta anyway. So let's just get right into it. We'll start off with Ace since we're already here. Ace is a 6,000 power 3 life leader. On your opponent's attack, trash one card from your hand, give it to one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 2,000 power during this battle. Valentine's 1, when you take damage or your character with 6,000 base power or more is KO to draw a card. So essentially, you get one extra free 2k every turn. You can even turn a brick into a 2k with this, which is insanely good. And you're going to be drawing like a madman. You draw so many cards in this deck. The leader itself is extremely powerful, and is only enabled even further by some of these power cards that he's got going on inside the deck. One of the biggest issues when playing against Ace is just the unbreakable wall that he puts up, especially into the late game. With all of his 10-drop new gates, he's got the blocker new gate. He's got this one that makes him bigger. Even the tax beard can be a big problem for a lot of decks as well. And just having 13, 14 cards in hand doesn't hurt either. Not a whole lot can be done, I think, about the leader itself. I don't want to ban him, especially not. I love the character. He's one of my favorite characters, and I'm super happy to see that he has a good playable leader. But it is pretty unfun to play into. I will say that. It can be quite demoralizing once you start getting into those later turns and you're just the brick wall you're bashing your head against gets harder and harder until eventually you realize the brick wall is not getting harder, your head is just turning to mush and you're going to lose. So let's talk about some of these other cards that make this deck such a problem. First and foremost, the blocker Marco. On KO, draw 2. In Ace, this card just says draw 3 cards, in addition to not taking a life. This is wildly powerful, and if he gets one of these down anytime before 10 dawn, the game is immediately swung in his favor. Picking up 3 cards, not taking a life is such a huge play, especially in a 3 life leader where his weakness is supposed to be that he doesn't start with as much life as everybody else. Yet here we are. It doesn't matter how much life he has. He makes up for that with having an absolute book in his hand the whole game. And another card that contributes directly to that is this 5 cost Yamato. 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. If you have 3 or less life cards, draw 2 cards, then give a rested Don to your leader. Obviously, this was printed for Ace, because this card is turned on immediately without taking any damage. You would just immediately draw 2 cards, put 1 down on your leader. This allows you to play on your odd curve more effectively. And just more hand size increasing. Ace is drawing so many cards throughout the whole game. And this is just further enabling that, as well as putting a Dawn on your leader so that if they KO this or swing into your life, you're going to be drawing even more cards. The 9-drop Newgate. This card has been an issue before. Anybody who was playing back in set 2 and 3 remembers this card very well. Because Newgate himself was using it, and he has pretty much the same thing that Ace was doing, except he was getting all his cards out of his life because he started with 6 life, whereas Ace is just kind of not taking like the whole game and getting a bunch more cards elsewhere. But this is a problem for the same reason it was back then. Your leader is already 6k. Getting plus 2,000 more power during your opponent's turn makes you even harder to swing into, and even that much harder to deal damage to. So, not a whole lot to say about this. It's pretty self-explanatory. Your leader is big, hard to swing into. This makes your leader even bigger and even harder to swing into. Tax Beard. When this card came out in set 8 with Marco, the red-blue Marco, I remember you couldn't give this card away. It was worth negative money, right? I had an alt art of this card for months and months and months, and nobody wanted it. And all of a sudden, Ace comes out, and the card is $20, $25. While that's very funny, there's a good reason for that. Ace is playing this. First of all, he's playing this for 8 Dawn with the event that we'll talk about later. And this is definitely a silver bullet into decks like Zoro, right? Or even Emu. Doesn't like this card very much. Because having you drop 2 cards from your hand for every attack is just not going to happen. Basically what this card says is your opponent skips their next turn. They won't be swinging into you. They might swing with their leader, but they won't be swinging with anything else. It's not worth pitching 2 cards to swing into you when you can just wait the 1 turn. And unfortunately, for a lot of decks, 1 turn is really all Ace needs to just turn around and kill you. Because his whole board is going to be full of these gargantuan bodies. And he's going to have so many cards in hand that you're probably not going to kill him, even if you do survive that next turn. You'll notice a lot of these cards don't have counter. No counter here, no counter here, no counter, no counter, and events don't have counter. Ace kind of nullifies that. What would be a weakness in other decks, it's just not here, because Ace can turn any brick in his hand into a 2k once per turn. And across the whole game, he's going to get a whole lot of value out of that. Let's move on to the new 10-drop Whitebeard, the blocker, draw 2, trash 1, and then give 2 Rested Dawn to one of your leader and character cards. This is insane value. This is worth playing out on 10, even without the event, just because it does still give the Rested Dawn. This card is crazy good. I actually really like this card. I think it's really good card design, because 10 drops are really hard to make good in this game. Spending all of your Dawn is generally a bad play. Very rarely are 10 costs actually like playable cards, and even when they are, playing them at the wrong time can still just kill you, right? If your opponent has an answer or is able to clap back in a good enough way. But the 10 cost blocker Newgate here kind of solves that problem a little bit by allowing you to basically utilize 14 Dawn this turn by paying 10 for this and still getting 4 to put across your characters to swing with. That's really good. The issue arises from the fact that A, it's in this deck that's already kind of committing war crimes, and B, you're playing it for 8 Dawn. So overall, I think it's a really good card. I don't think this is like a super problem card. The draw 2 trash one is also really good too as well, right? Especially in Ace, getting more cards in your hand.
He's never going to say no to that. He needs all the defense he can get with only being 3 life.
And this is definitely contributing to that, especially also being a blocker. It's kind of on the same level as Blackbeard's 10 cost was. Your boss monster also being a blocker is really powerful for just surviving those last couple turns you need to close out the game. The issue arises with this next card, I Am Whitebeard event from the starter deck, the Ace Newgate starter deck. For 8 Dawn, activate main. If your leader has the Whitebeard Pirates type, play up to 1 Edward Newgate from your hand, no cost restriction. Then you may add the top or bottom card of your life cards into your hand. If you did, you give up to one of your leader 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So you will sometimes add the life and get the extra power. That's definitely not negligible. Especially if you know next turn you can close out the game. You'll just go ahead and pick up that life. Oh, you know what? While we're on this subject, let's go ahead and add this bad boy in there because we will be talking about that. Especially if you know you can close out the game next turn. Hint, hint. We'll be talking about closing games here. You go ahead and pick out that life and make yourself just a little bit harder to swing into during your opponent's turn. But the big thing here is playing any Newgate for only 8. So you're playing this guy for 8. You still have 2 Dawn left up to do stuff like save for counter events, put on your leader to swing, play the new Uta card from the Shank starter deck. Right, that just came out not too long ago. When you have a character with 10k or more, it's a 2 cost blocker, and it's also just a 2k. Extremely good card. I don't think this is necessarily a problem card, which is why it wasn't in the list to start with, but this is definitely a very strong play after tapping 8 for the I Am Newgate event, or I Am Whitebeard. So I think this is the major problem point in this deck. In addition to everything else, he's already super strong. Only having to tap 8 for one of your Edward Newgates is insanely powerful. And if anything were to get hit in this deck, I think this is it. I think you put this to 0. The deck is still insanely strong, even with no copies of this, because like I said, you can play this for 10 easily. You just cut this out of the deck, don't play anymore. This still leaves you up 1 Dawn to put on leader if you play it. The deck is still extremely playable if we don't have this. So I think this can and probably should go. This is a huge power card for the deck. And removing it, I don't even know how much it will bring it down, but it definitely brings it down some, and I think this card might have to go if we were to make any hits to Ace. So let's move on to the game closer in question. Secret Rare Goldie Roger from set 9. Oh boy. Is this card a doozy? It was kind of a funny card before. Didn't really go off very often, but it existed, and it would win some games sometimes. But in Ace, oh man, is this thing a menace. This is definitely a problem. One of the biggest ways that decks are even close to surviving in this format is with blockers. And, this card just completely counteracts that. It's a 10 cost, 13k, so it's the most overstated card in the game by design. I don't think that's a huge issue. 10 costs, usually you're not getting out of those swings anyway, unless you're dumping everything. It does have rush. It's a very red keyword, but the main problem here is when your opponent activates blocker, if either of you have 0 life cards, you win the game. The big issue there being that says if either person has 0 life cards. So if you have 0 life cards, which is very easy at only 3 life, if your opponent activates blocker, you just win. So if you go into a turn where you have just, like I said, played this for 8 to play your blocker Newgate, you now have, maybe one of these guys on board and a couple of these guys. And you're going into the next turn as an 8,000 power leader with 2 12k blockers and more than likely 12 to 15 cards in your hand. Your opponent can't kill you that turn, as much as they would certainly love to. And then the next turn you just tap 10 for this 13,000 power Roger, and you swing into their life for 6, 10, 12, 12, 13. And if they can't counter out of that, they just immediately lose. Their blockers do nothing. Because at any point in there, they block while you're at 0 life, you immediately win the game. I don't know if this card should be banned. It's definitely a problem in this format specifically, because how easy it is for Ace to go to 0 and just already have this gargantuan, disgusting board that the only way you would even possibly live through it is blocking. But in every other deck besides Ace, I don't think this card is nearly as bad. I think since the precedent has been set that we can do banned pairs, I think this is okay to just be a banned pair, right? Maybe we can do that with I Am Whitebeard too, because there's no reason to hurt the ST22 Ace Newgate deck by just banning this outright when we can easily just make it a banned pair here as well. I'm glad Bandai has set that precedent, and that's something we can consider now, because I think that is much healthier for the game as a whole, especially considering it's super easy for people to understand, right? There's a leader card, and with this leader, you cannot use this card. That's pretty simple. It's much easier than banned pairs in Digimon, where you have to remember that in any deck you put together, these two cards can't go in the same deck, right? It's much more intuitive to be like, okay, I have this leader. This leader can use every card he could normally use except for this one. So it's a good precedent that we've set there, and I hope they continue with stuff like this to keep the format in check, but also not, let other decks catch strays. Because, back in set 2, set 3, what I was talking about before, when the Western version of the game only got their unique ban list, Whitebeard got hit, but then Nami caught a stray and was also limited or banned, or I don't remember, I think she was banned. It was definitely a ban that was intended to lower the power of Newgate, but it just ended up affecting every red deck, even the bad ones, which I guess at the time weren't that many. I think all the decks at the time were just red decks. It was all red decks and Green Kid. But Nami was definitely not the issue. Nami was mostly a hit to Newgate to stop him from being able to search his other power cards. Anything in his deck that wasn't a Newgate was a Straw Hat. Strawbeard was the main way to play Newgate at the time. And Nami definitely caught a stray there. But like I said, the banned pairs are a precedent that has been set, and I think that's a great thing for us to be able to use here. So I think banning these two cards in the same deck and banning Roger from play in Ace is probably what is needed to make sure this deck doesn't absolutely just waffle stomp people like it currently is. As far as limiting Roger to 1 would do next to nothing, because it's already only played at 1 or 2. Because you can search it with Monkey D. Garp, which I guess we'll talk about that for a second as well. Because it is probably one of the most egregious searcher cards they've ever printed. If your leader is Sabo, Ace, or Luffy, you look at the top 4 and grab anything with cost 3 or more. This is insanely powerful for obvious reasons. Most of Ace's deck is cost 3 or more. The only thing that's not are the other 1 costs, so his other searchers in Otama, the 2K. So with this, you're grabbing pretty much everything else in the deck, and most importantly, you are grabbing this goalie Roger. So putting it at 1 doesn't really do anything, because you still grab it off of this, and you're only really playing it at 1 or 2 anyway. So I think this probably should just not be allowed to be played in Ace. He has plenty of closing power without it, and it makes him have to think a little bit harder about his defenses instead of just mindlessly, walling up, able to dump his hand the turn before he slams this and then just kill you for free. Like I said, I really love Ace as a character. I'm glad he finally has a good deck, but maybe it's a little bit too good and should probably rein it a little bit. So let's talk about Emu next. Emu, disgusting, right? Leader reads, under the rules of the game, you cannot include event cards with a cost of 2 or more in your deck, and at the start of the game, you place up to 1 Marijois type stage from your deck. 99% of the time, you're going to be placing this stage, the Empty Throne. Let's go ahead and do Emu's other effect. Activate main, trash 1 card from your hand, or 1 Celestial Dragon type character from your field to draw a card. It's just decent filtering, right? Or just hand advantage if you trash something off your board. A lot of Emus, in the early game, they'll play their 1-drop searcher and then just trash off board immediately to get that card draw. It's a pretty okay effect. The real problem, we'll talk about all these cards, but the main problem with this entire deck is this card right here. You start with this on board, so you don't actually pay 7 for it. That 7 means literally nothing. If you have 19 or more cards in your trash, your leader gains plus 1,000 power. Yippee wahoo, who cares? It's a small advantage you get in the late game, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. What's really egregious here is activate main, rest this stage and 3 of your Dawn. Play up to 1 black 5 Elders type character card with a cost equal to or less than the number of Dawn cards on your field from your hand. So that means every single card you see up here costs 3 Dawn. Now with things like the Saturn, the Valkyrie, that's not super egregious, right? It's a 1 Dawn discount. That's the same as the other stage. That's the same as the original Marijois, which is just reducing a Celestial Dragon by 1. It starts to get more ridiculous when you're reducing this by 3. The Rusher that can minus 2k, or the Blocker that can KO something for free, or the guy that just makes all of these guys 7Ks instead of 5Ks. And the real crime here is the 10 drop. So first of all, you're playing this 10-12 for free, or for 3. And if that wasn't enough value for you already, I don't think I've ever seen this stay on the board, because this is one of the only cards in the deck that doesn't have the line of text that says it can't be removed. All of the Elders, all the 5 Elders say they cannot be removed if you have 7 or more cards in your trash. So pretty much the second they hit the board, because you're probably going to mill your first couple turns with your searchers or just your milling blockers, these guys are staying. They're stuck there until you either swing into them or Emu removes them themselves. This is the only card that does not have that line of text, so I don't think I've ever seen this card sit on the board for a turn, because if you do, you're just asking to get red rocked and just lose all of that momentum. It's not worth letting it sit there to try and get the 12k swing before you do its effect. Which its effect is, if your leader is Emu, you rest 1 Dawn card and trash 1 card from your hand. You trash all characters on your board and play up to 5 different character cards with 5 Elders in their types and 5,000 power. Hey, look at that. We have 5 Elders right here. They're all 5,000 power and they all have different character names. This is a wild swing in momentum, and basically all Emu has to do is survive until their 10 Dawn turn, where they can tap 3 to play this, tap 1 more and trash a card to completely reset their board with a 7k Rusher, and then wait until the next turn. And if you don't put enough pressure for them to use their blockers, they're swinging 7 into you 5 times, and then just doing the whole thing again with the next 10 cost they have in hand. For obvious reasons, a lot of decks just can't handle that kind of pressure, especially over and over again. If they see 2, 3 10 costs in a row, Emu's already won. Emu mirrors, however, I don't even think I'm going to talk about Emu mirrors. I'll just tell you now, they're boring. It's just 2 people staring at each other the whole game, because they're playing this stage, so they're not tapping 3 for everything, they're tapping 1 less. And they just kind of stare at each other the whole game. It's swinging 7s. They can't play this stage because of their event. So 1 for 4 event, which is really good in Emu. But the activate main of it says to rest 1 Dawn. If your leader's Emu, KO a stage of cost 7, which is basically this. It's just the Mirror Breaker card. The Mirror Breaker just punishes them for not knowing that they don't play this in the mirror off of their leader effect. They play the other one. But yeah, not a whole lot to say here. This is one of those decks that obviously it was just made to be good, and it does that way too well. I don't know what we could possibly hit here without killing the deck, because everything in the deck is a new card. All of it is intended to work with each other, and removing even a single piece kills it entirely. The most we could do is maybe limit the 10 cost, so they can only do that once or twice the whole game. You know, that could be a pretty big hit to it, but then I don't know if the deck is even worth playing if you have to like turbo dig for your 10 costs, and then if you don't see it, you lose because you only have 4 life. So this is a really hard deck to properly adjust, given that it just kind of is egregious out of the gate. But yeah, I'm done talking about Emu. Let's move on. Get this out of my face. Let's talk about Monkey. Right, I turned my cards sideways. Deck. This card was. Let's read the leader effect. Right, Dawn times 3 activate main. If this leader battles your opponent's character during this turn, set this leader as active. Then this leader cannot attack your opponent's characters with a base cost of 7 or less during this turn. So basically what this leader says is, I will clear your board and then still punch you in the mouth for 8,000. That's a cool effect. That's fun, right? If that's all it did, this would be a neat leader, and I would probably like it a lot. The problem arises with this card right here. 5 cost, 7,000 power, so it's vanilla statted. But it doesn't have counter. It's never staying in your hand. It's going on the board immediately. On play, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 6 or less. Then give up to 3 rested Dawn cards to your Rowan or Zora leader. Who thought this was a good idea? This card is so ridiculously overstated that when it first got revealed and it was just an alt art, I thought it was an SR. It turns out it's just a rare in the set. And my mind is blown. This card is the entire deck. It does way too much. Why does it rest base cost 6 or less? Why does it rest 1 cost up from its own cost? Why is it still a 7k body? Why does it give 3 rested Dawn to your leader? It just does too much. Why does it do all this on one singular card? This is so insanely powerful. This is the main reason the deck is able to do what it does, is because I rest your shit, I kill your shit, I kill you. The end. I have all these other cards here to talk about, but really this is it. This is the problem. Everything else here is like whatever, like searchers, right? They search for Slash. That's really cool, but it's a little bit broken because of all the good generic shit you can find in Slash. But at this point, who cares? This is the issue. I was going to talk about this Zoro, but this is only really an issue because you can enable more of this, right? Same here. This is really only an issue because it enables more of this. Toshigi is probably the worst, most power crept card they've ever printed. And it needs to be banned. I think you just put this card to 0. Nobody else can use it the same way Zoro does anyway. It is half leader locked, right? It's not leader locked in the sense that it's still a 5/7 that rests a 6, a base 6, mind you, which is really powerful. But it also doesn't give Dawn to anybody but Zoro. And I don't think anybody else is playing it but Zoro, because nobody else is going to play the brick that, you know, doesn't give you the same advantage. Like, why would you play a deck and try to play this when you can just play Zoro and play this? Basically, is what I'm getting at. Everything else in here, I was going to yap about, but at this point, we know this is the issue. This is only an issue because it protects this. This is only really an issue because it lets you untap Dawn and play more of this, right? Or find this if you haven't found it yet. This is only an issue because not only does it give you back your searcher to find more of this, it also just plays this, right? Return a character, play a 5 or less from your hand rested. Oh, look at that. 5 cost. Give my leader 3 Dawn. Swing into your board for free and then hit you in the face. This is the issue. This card right here. There is no counterplay to this. It doesn't have to rest itself to do anything. The only time it will come out rested is when it comes off of this, and by then you've probably already swung with it, played this, picked it back up, and just played it again to get your leader effect again. Tashigi is the issue. There's a simple fix to making this deck not nearly as powerful as it is, and it's banning Tashigi. But anyway, that's all I really have to say, guys. Like I said, we were going to have some gameplay tonight, but the Emu Mirrors broke my spirit and I had to yap. I'm especially distasteful of this deck, as you can tell. I didn't even talk about all these cards because honestly they don't matter. This is the issue. Get rid of this card, please. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I'm going to go play Fusion World now. See you later.